Today I want to talk about the Great Conjunction. Now, some of you may have heard of it, others may not. And from the digging I've been doing, I'm going to say this is the biggest celestial event in our time. I'm going to tell you now that I'm not an astrologer, but I was introduced to astrology over 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago. Time flies. I did start to study the subject on and off by myself from books, but about 8 years ago I met a person who became a good friend who was an astrologer, and she introduced me to it again. And during that time she did teach me a lot. She wasn't very good at teaching, even though she was a very good astrologer, and I still remember some of what she's taught me. But I'll tell you now, I'm far from being an expert. So on the 21st of December 2020, which is not that far off now, and time does go fast, Jupiter and Saturn will become conjunct in our night sky. Now this happens every 20 years, but this year it actually happens on the winter solstice. Now, what is a conjunction in astrology? The conjunction is when two astronomical objects are lined up within 0 degrees of each other, give or take 6 degrees. And I've been hearing that the closer the degrees, the stronger the energies. The energies intensify, and I presume we feel the effects more. But this year it's going to be the closest conjunction that Saturn and Jupiter have come since 1623. So not only does it fall on the winter solstice, it also falls in the first degree of Aquarius. They're going to be 0.1 degrees apart. Now, since last night I found out as well what makes this more special is the conjunction every 20 years has fallen in an earth sign for the past 200 years, if I'm correct on that. But for the first time it's going to fall into an air sign. Aquarius is an air sign. I'm also hearing, due to this alignment, we're going to be moving out of the age of Cancer and into the age of Aquarius. Now, I'm not sure, from my digging, some agree with this, some don't. But it's also known as the Great Conjunction. Now, I found this interesting because we've been hearing about this for years, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. We've all heard of it over our time. And according to some, we're now about to enter the age of Aquarius. Now, before I talk about what this might mean to us on planet Earth, I'll just add a few things. So, if you look at this chart, you can see Aquarius just here, and it's in the 11th house. And there's your Saturn and Jupiter, and as you can see, at 0 degrees. Now, I have taken this from a website called Astrology. Please check it out and support them if you're into astrology or you want to know more. So Aquarius rules the 11th house on an astrology chart. And this 11th house represents things like friendships, groups, society, future technology, social justice and rebellion, and other things. But what I found interesting to me, and whether this was intuitively, I'm not sure, but for me it represents the humanitarian causes, which I've spoke about previously on Webtalk. Now, I'm finding this interesting considering what we've been experiencing this year globally, where friendships have been tested, society's broken down, We've seen a lot of rebellion. We've seen people fighting for their rights and their freedoms. Now, I'm finding that interesting because that is the opposite of what this 11th house rules. Now, there's also talk of new technologies that have been hidden from us and treatments that would benefit our health. There's been patents in the past that are going to be declassified soon if they haven't been already. And there was one interesting one about a cure for cancer. These things have been hidden from us. I put a little love there for the frequency. So I'll just add a little note here before I go any further. Every planet has its own energy, and different people will interpret this differently. But it's wise to remember each planet has a good and bad meaning. A good astrologer will know or feel that meaning. And as I've got here is one astrologer I knew. He was all about doom and gloom in his astrology predictions. But when I looked at this person, he was also a negative person on his outlook on life. So if he did the cards or the astrology, it was always more on the negative side. So we have good and bad in everything, and astrology is no different. So what does this mean for us on planet Earth? Well, depending on who you talk to, sorry, that was the cat sneezing. So depending on who you talk to, it can vary. But here are a few things I've heard over the recent months. You can do your own research online for different predictions from different astrologers. I'm just going to sum up a few things I've been hearing. So now we know it's called the Great Conjunction. Again, I found this interesting as we're being told constantly at the moment about the Great Reset. Is that just a coincidence? I don't think so. Just my opinion. One is light, one is dark, good versus evil. You have to make your own mind up on that. I'm also hearing it's about activation, and it's where people are going to be moving from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, or rather third dimensional to fifth dimensional. Whether that means the same thing or not, I don't know. And it's also being called the Great Awakening, which again is interesting because daily we're seeing people waking up because of the current events. They're waking up to what's really going on and what's been going on for decades. Again, sorry, that was the cat. I'm seeing this increasingly as the days go by. Now, the closer we come to Saturn and Jupiter conjunct, the more people seem to be waking up. Are they waking up because of this great awakening, or is it just because of what we're experiencing at the moment? So people are actually waking up to who they really are, and they're starting to understand the reality we've been living in. It's going to bring people together again and to have a better way of living. Again, this is what I'm hearing from different sources. Again, this is where the humanitarian comes in. I'm hearing about communities coming together. There's some interviews out there with a few people who are already building these communities, and I'm talking about living together in a community. People are going to be working together more And I've used the example, a simple example of growing your own food, but instead of just growing it for yourself, you're growing it to help each other and the community you live in. It's going to open up to higher levels of consciousness. We're going to become more connected to one another. We're going to be breaking old patterns that have held us back for so long. Now, when it says higher levels of consciousness, I also believe that people are going to be tapping into the intuition and the spiritual side of things more. And I also think we're going to start seeing a big advancement in technology. And this time it's going to be used for the good. Because most technologies, like Tesla technologies, it's been hidden, or things have been used more for the bad side rather than the good side. That's what I was seeing anyway. So I've heard many positive things, but what I'm going to say next can be seen both positively or negatively. This is going to depend on your personal outlook. Don't forget, we've got light, dark, yin, yang, white, black. Depends on your view and how you interpret things. So we're going to find out that some of these technologies have been here for years and have been held back for various reasons. I'm going to let you mull that one over because I don't want to go on a rant in this video. Plus, I don't want to be deplatformed for my views on things. I will say, usually money comes into things. We're going to start to see what has been really going on this planet. What's really been going on, I suppose, in the Matrix. The average person probably isn't even aware of a lot of things that have been going on. And again, I think that comes down to the third dimensional moving into the fifth dimensional. But things will be uncovered and brought out into the open. Some of these things will be very, very hard for some people to see and hear. That's your cognitive dissonance. Again, I'm not going to go into any details here. Some of this is what I've been hearing. Some is my feelings on the matter, my intuition. No matter how horrible some of these things being revealed are, we need it out in the open so we can learn from history and never, never allow it to happen again. I don't believe we're going to hear everything, maybe 20 to 30%. I think some of it's going to be too shocking for most people to handle. So I think only 20 to 30% is going to be revealed. But that should be more than enough to make a lot of people learn from our history. And hopefully it's going to start people waking up to what's really been going on in this world. So I'm going to finish back on a positive note. I like that picture. So one thing that keeps coming up time and time again is we're entering into a time of light. It doesn't mean bad things won't happen now and again, because that's life at the end of the day. We all have different life experiences, but I am hearing we're going to be entering into 1,000 years of peace. So just let that sink in for a minute. 1,000 years of peace. Now, what's the average age on this planet? Let's say 82. In 82 years, have we known this before? Let alone 1,000 years. Now, we've just got to see what happens. Everyone experiences different things. I do know the people who have been awake to what's really been happening to us and our planet will be there to help people waking up during that transition. You're not going to be left on your own. There'll be always someone there. So I'm going to say look into this because it's very interesting. I find it interesting. This is just me summing up a few things of what I've been hearing. I've heard a lot more than this. But I will say that I've been researching for over 30 years. I also use my intuition, and I've had information given to me through different people who've crossed my path in those 30 years. It's going to be 30 years plus more. I'm just saying 30 years. I've had this information coming from other means as well, not just on planet Earth means, if that makes any sense. But I must say that was years ago, and the different things I've researched over the years, had intuition over, and my intuition's not as strong these days, and other information has brought us to this place. Most of what I've found out or been told has been true and is now being played out, sadly. But if it means 1,000 years of peace, I welcome it with open arms. So are you ready yet? Are you excited about what our future holds? And are you going to be open to living in a peaceful world in the light? Now, I just want you to think about this last question for a second. Are you open to living in a peaceful world? Just think, the past nigh on 12 months, not quite, we've had our world turned upside down. I bet most of us have forgot what life was like before March 2020. And once we come through this, once things get sorted out and we're no longer in this crisis, how are we going to adjust to a more peaceful world? I don't think it's going to be that easy for some people, because I think the minute it's announced we've won over this virus, my words, we've won over this virus, there's going to be still people out there who will still not go into a shop without a mask on. The divisions are still there between people. It's going to take time for certain people to come and stand in your space again and hold a conversation without a mask on. And I think we just have to be patient. But I know I'm ready for it. It's time. It seriously is time we move into a peaceful planet.